Hey, filmmakers, I'm Nick Bodmer.
I'm Griffin Hammond, and on this week's episode, I just earned my FAA license for flying drones commercially. And it's not hard to do. You could do it in 2 weeks.
Plus, your questions about shooting infrared, collaborating with another editor, and recording audio with a boom pole. Hello, Mr.
Nick.
Pilot.
Yes, I'm a licensed pilot now.
I mean, you really are, right? I mean, it's the same spectrum as a real pilot, right?
Yeah, I realized actually while taking the test, there's this supplement book from the FAA, and it has all the charts and stuff that they're asking you questions about. And at first I thought it was like the drone book, but now I realize it was the same book that all the pilots who take written tests are looking at. It's just, I think it ignored half the pages and just showed, I mean, I guess there's some stuff I have to learn that pilots have to know even more, real pilots.
So you've got your license, you are licensed. Is there a physical document to prove such, or is this all electronic these days?
Yes, I will get a physical license in the mail. In fact, I guess technically I'm not a pilot yet. I passed the knowledge test, and I've applied for my license, and I suppose I have 100% confidence that they're going to approve it, but I think I'm still a few days away from it being approved and then them mailing me the certificate.
Gotcha. Okay, so what does this do for you now that you are a licensed drone pilot, or will be shortly? What does that let you do that you couldn't do before, or at least legally?
Right. So, I mean, you can fly without a license, definitely. And, I mean, the FAA has
good,
rules for
my
hobbyists.
drone's right there, and I've been flying it.
Right. Yeah, so you're flying under the hobbyist rules, which in a lot of ways are really similar to the licensed pilot rules. Both people can only fly under 400 feet above ground level. Although technically pilots can fly above that if they're flying over like a tower, for example. If that's a 1,000-foot tower, you could fly up to 1,400 feet above ground to look at the tower, for example. And I suppose a hobbyist can't do that. A hobbyist is supposed to stay 5 miles away from all airports, whereas a commercial pilot can probably be closer because they are actually looking at the sectional charts and know what kind of airspace they're operating in. So a commercial pilot can operate in any uncontrolled Class G airspace or ask for a authorization from air traffic control to fly in a controlled airspace. So there's a few more privileges there.
So since I live within 5 miles of an airport, do you think I'm technically not supposed to fly my drone in my backyard?
Yeah, I think you're technically not supposed to. But of course people do.
Don't tell anybody.
But yeah, I mean,
Interesting.
You're not even, I think even up to 400 feet, you're not supposed to fly in any of that space.
Interesting. Okay, well, I'll just stop flying that drone then.
Yeah.
Don't worry, everybody.
And
cool.
then the most important thing is that I can fly commercially now. Like now someone could pay me to fly. And the FAA is pretty, they're pretty strict about what is commercial. I mean, anything you monetize on YouTube can be commercial. I mean, if someone gives you a beer in exchange for flying a drone to inspect their gutters or something, all of that could be commercial. So I like that this just kind of covers me.
Okay. Are there insurance requirements? Since I know we love fun topics here on Handy Filmmakers.
The FAA doesn't have any requirements for insurance. They do have requirements for reporting accidents if they rise to a certain threshold. So if you crash your drone into a person and it requires hospitalization, then you have to file that report with the FAA so they can investigate the incident. I mean, now it's an FAA, aircraft crash.
Jeez.
Also, if you damage, I think $500 or more worth of stuff, someone else's stuff, on
not
impact,
your own, not the drone itself,
right? Then you would also have to report this to the FAA. There's actually a pretty cool app called Verifly, which will let you insure your flight, and it's pretty inexpensive. It's something I learned about during this process of learning how to get my license. You could do I was just in Illinois last week, and over my in-laws' house, I could just tap on the map. It'll say, hey, if you want to fly in this quarter-mile region and if you want to fly for the next hour, we can give you $1 million worth of liability coverage, and it costs $10. And you can buy it right now.
And just like on an incident-by-incident basis, as opposed to going to an insurance provider and getting general coverage for the next year.
Right. Well, and it makes a lot of sense because I imagine a lot of drone pilots were going to their insurers saying, hey, I don't need coverage. I don't need this liability coverage 24/7. I really just need it for this flight right now, maybe another flight a month from now. So it makes more sense just to buy it on an hour-by-hour basis.
That's clever. If you were doing a paid commercial shoot, is that something you think you'd take advantage of?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, so now I feel like I have a lot of the tools. I have the license. If someone wanted to pay me to fly and use it in a commercial project, now I feel like I can do that. I know how to read the maps and do it safely and understand the weather and do it safely and get my insurance. So, yeah, I feel much more comfortable now.
Okay. So are we going to be adding to our stable of drones then? Are you eyeing a new drone?
I mean, so right now I have the Dji Mavic Air, which I like. I mean, I've gotten really comfortable with it. It shoots 4K video. The only thing I don't like about it is it does have a tendency to, I feel like on a lot of flights, I have a lost link, a lost signal with
you
the
mentioned
RC
that
control.
last time. I remember that. Yeah.
Although I've gotten more comfortable with that because I've also come to understand the drone better and its like contingency plan built into the drone is. If it loses signal for more than 3 seconds, it will initiate its return to home. And I've actually been practicing with return to home just so I could trust it more because I never really liked it when the drone was doing its own thing. But now that I see that it works and I've always been able to recover from a lost link, it's usually just a temporary thing and the drone just hovers there. It doesn't like fly off into the distance. I'm happy with it. But I kind of think that maybe I'd upgrade to the Mavic Pro someday or something else.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking at is the Mavic Pro. I've been playing with my DJI Spark, and I have found it does tell you to turn off Bluetooth on your phone, and it seems to make a difference. I don't know if that's something you're doing, actually going into settings and turning off Bluetooth, even if it's not connected to anything, but it seems to be helping me.
Well, yeah, the Spark and the Mavic Air operate differently with the way they work with the phone, and I'm not sure why they do it this way. But the Spark, I think your phone connects to your RC controller, right, through Wi-Fi.
Yes. Yep.
And then the RC controller connects to the Spark. The RC controller for the Mavic Air also connects to the Mavic Air, but then you don't connect to the RC controller with Wi-Fi. You do it through a wired connection. So the phone actually plugs into the remote.
Gotcha. Okay. But the Bluetooth could still be interfering with the controller's communication with the drone, right?
Yeah, you're right. Maybe I should just make sure that's turned off.
Give it a try.
Yeah. I also, for the first time, used my iPad to fly. Because actually, I was doing some gutter inspection at my in-laws' house, and I thought if we're going to take
you weren't joking when you came up with that that analogy.
Right, yeah. Well, and I figured I want to actually be able to see pretty well, because we're taking photos, so it's not just
right.
It's not just looking at the screen for piloting. I also want to make sure I'm getting solid photos, so I thought I would use a bigger screen. And you actually can plug. The Mavic Air has a USB port on the bottom, so you can plug in your iPad to it.
That's cool.
But I had to have Amy hold it, so she acted as my visual observer on my crew. Do you want to hear some of the questions I got wrong on this test?
I do.
So at first when I was studying for this test, I assumed it was going to be longer and more arduous. I thought it was going to be 200 questions or something because I think a lot of my practice tests were longer. But the test you actually take, what you're passing is you're trying to pass the Part 107 certification with the FAA. That's the section of the FAA regulations that deals with drones, or they call them small unmanned aircraft systems, SUASs. And so you have to take, it's a 60 question test. You have 2 hours to take it, and you have to get a 70%. And I went in thinking like, oh, I bet I can do it in 20 minutes and I'll get like a 96. And actually, one thing that threw me off while taking the test was that all the practice tests I took online, all the pictures would be right next to the question on the internet. But when I'm taking the test I actually went to a flight school in Illinois to go take the test. And when I sit down, all the questions say like refer to figure 72 in the book. So you have to like open up the book, and then figure 72 is on page 70, which would throw me off. Because sometimes I would like go to page 72 and like start looking at a diagram. They'd be like, wait, this isn't figure 72, this is figure 74. So,
oh no.
So yeah, it added like a whole, I mean, I think it probably took me 45 minutes to take the test. So it added like an extra 25 minutes just of flipping through pages. That was one thing I didn't anticipate. In the end though, I got 8 questions wrong. So I got an 87% on the test.
You didn't really expect you to be a B student, Griffin, but okay, if you're okay with mediocrity.
Well, this is my understanding of how the test works. I think there's about 600 questions in their random pool database.
Yep.
And I suppose they're always changing them. And so the educational materials that I actually used a website called remotepilot101.com. And it's about 13 hours of videos. So I watched through all these videos, and at the end of their thing, I got a 96% on their test. And so they have example questions. And so when I saw those kinds of questions on the test, I was like, oh, I know all of these. And then it just seems like the FAA has probably added some. So there's probably like 20% of the test that's just like unknown. So there are definitely some questions I came across
You just had no
I
idea.
never heard of. Yeah.
All right, let's hear some example. Give me an easy question. Let me see if I can get it right.
Well, let's see. It won't be one of the ones I got wrong. Well, like this one is interesting. One of the questions was, okay, the question is the cloud level, like the cloud ceiling is at 800 feet above ground level. What is the maximum height you can fly at? And all of the questions are three multiple choice. So your options are 400 feet AGL above ground level, 300 feet AGL, or 200 feet AGL.
I'm going to say 400 feet, final answer.
What'd you say?
400 feet, final answer.
400 feet. 400 feet is what I said, because I learned you're allowed to fly up to 400 feet. Somehow, in all of my 13 hours of training, I never learned that you're supposed to fly 500 feet below clouds.
Oh, okay.
Which,
so that would be 300 feet, final answer.
I don't know how they didn't teach me that. I feel like I paid pretty close attention. And there is a lot of talk about weather and cloud ceilings in the course. And now in retrospect, it's like, oh, well, that's why I was learning about cloud ceilings. I didn't know I was supposed to fly 500 feet below them. Also,
and why is that? Is that because other aircraft might need to fly below the cloud ceiling and you need to have plenty of room for them to get under the clouds? And without
generally there's a buffer. Like most airplanes, manned aircraft, I think they're not supposed to come below 500 feet. And you're not supposed to go above 400 feet. So there's like this 100-foot buffer between you and what other planes are supposed to be doing. But yeah, presumably with a low cloud ceiling, there's loss of visibility. If someone's flying visually and not by their instruments so much, then yeah, maybe that causes some issues. So I think just to be safe, they want you to stay below the clouds. So now I know the correct answer to that was 300 feet.
300 feet.
Yeah.
Easy. I don't know why you got that wrong. I knew that all along.
Yeah, and there was some question about like mountain gusts around mountains that I just hadn't heard of. Didn't know anything about that. What was another weird one? One of them was about like the frequency of the radio frequency you're supposed to use when there's no control tower in operation, and I hadn't learned that. But most of the questions are about reading what are called VFR sectional charts, like being able to look at a map provided by the FAA and understand what all the symbols mean, know what Class B, Class C, Class D, and Class E airspace look like, and how to read like what altitudes you're allowed to fly at and where you're allowed to fly before needing proper authorization. And there's lots of weather questions.
It's fascinating stuff. I look forward to your professional drone videos very soon.
Yeah. So I feel like I should provide I should probably just put my notes that I took during my class online.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recommend that someone just go and read all my notes and then take the test. I think you'll fail if you do that. But I do think that it only takes about 2 weeks to learn these skills. So I feel like if you're a decent learner, you should be able to right now go schedule a test 2 weeks from now if you really want to do this. And I'm sure you could find the time to learn all of these skills. And you could either do like what I did and go to remotepilot101.com. I paid them $150 to take the class. Or I think you could learn all of these through the free resources that the FAA has. Especially, I think if you took a look at my notes and saw like all the stuff about airspace and METARs, which are weather reports, and VFR sectional charts and all of these things. I think if you just get a sense of kind of what you need to learn about, you could do a lot of this learning on your own.
Maybe I'll do it myself.
Yeah,
like it'd be kind of a fun little side gig, just being like the drone guy for different drone stuff.
Yeah, and I think you'd be able to do this no problem. You're a good learner. In fact, I bet if you took the test right now, you'd probably get like 50% right just from... I think you can... It's really a test where you could deduce a lot of common sense answers out of it.
Multiple choice is usually my forte.
Yeah. And then it costs $150 to actually apply. Well, no, not to apply for the license, just to take the knowledge test. To sign up for the knowledge test costs $150. So at the very least, you need $150 and 2 weeks to train yourself on how to take the test.
And then you two can be a licensed pilot like Griffin Hammond.
Yes.
Is this your second federal government issued license?
Yes. Yeah, you and I both have our FCC license, our amateur radio licenses.
Super nerdy. Super nerdy. But we do. Should we answer some questions, Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
We got a tweet from Jeff. And we got a lot of notes after our last episode about MoviePass, didn't we?
Yeah, it was weird timing. We did the episode about MoviePass and the competing product from AMC, both monthly movie plans, and right after this, what happened to MoviePass?
MoviePass had a bad day, and they've
like
run
a whole
into some
bad
trouble.
week.
Yeah. In fact, the news is still coming out about them. There's like new news that they just released today. But tell us what happened with MoviePass right after we launched our episode.
Well, yeah, I think for a long time people have been questioning if MoviePass is a viable business model. Pretty much giving away movies for less than cost, because they have to pay the movie theaters. And so, sure enough, when the Mission Impossible movie came out, everyone tried to go see it, and suddenly MoviePass was like, we don't have enough money to pay all the theaters back. So they just like started cutting people off and doing essentially a blackout where you couldn't reserve spots at the theater.
Do you know how much money they lose every month, MoviePass, right now?
How
much
don't.
cash they're burning? They
have 3 million users.
Yeah, their burn rate, so how much money they're losing every month, is estimated at about $45 million a month.
Wow.
So they're not even close to profitable.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think, like a lot of these companies, it doesn't seem like, like a lot of social media companies, their end game isn't to make money off the product like that. Their end game was presumably to build up a huge user base and have leverage over the movie theaters. And I think the movie theaters were able to hold out long enough and say, like, we don't care if you have 3 million users. You can't tell us to lower our prices or tell us what to do. And so they're getting near the end, maybe.
Yep, it doesn't look so good for them.
Unless they change their business model, which they're starting to do. It looks like they are going to stop letting people go to all major releases. So that's Jeff's question.
Well, what they just announced today is they're rolling back some of those changes they announced last week because people got so mad.
Oh, wow.
MoviePass is also rolling back several recent changes that enraged many subscribers. Among them were added pricing for certain movies and showtimes, no access to major releases like Mission Impossible Fallout, and a higher monthly fee. So those are all being reversed.
Oh, wow.
So
all these... Maybe their stock price went back up after they announced the first thing, and now they feel more confident.
yeah. But I
so
think,
Jeff here is wondering. He feels sad
Oh,
because he said after watching our episode he signed up for MoviePass, and but don't worry, for the time being you still have privileges.
You're still going. Check it out. Maybe watch that renewal though.
Right? Yeah.
That's funny.
We also got a tweet from Aisha who she noticed one of my infrared tweets, like I had tweeted a picture of Andy in infrared. So she was wondering, do you have to convert a camera to shoot infrared? And then I think I told her, no, you can actually shoot with a filter. So she was wondering if we could recommend a good filter.
I don't know. Hopefully you can.
You don't shoot infrared. I also haven't used a filter. But my understanding is that the hot mirror that the manufacturers put inside cameras blocks 95% of the infrared light coming in and lets through mostly visible light. So you can put a filter on the camera that blocks visible light and only lets infrared in, but then you have to realize the camera is internally blocking infrared light. So I'm imagining that it probably takes about 20 times as much light as normal to capture an infrared image that way. So you're not going to be able to shoot video. You have to shoot a long exposure photograph where you're opening the shutter up at least 20 times longer than for visible light.
So probably like when you shoot time lapse, how you put a really dark ND filter on your camera to get some longer exposure times. It's probably going to be something similar to that, right?
Yeah, it's just like that. It is acting like a ND filter that's only letting in infrared. And so that's a good comparison because I would just go by what brand I like for ND filters, and I like the brand B+W, and I do see that they have an infrared filter. So I'll put that in the show notes at Hey.film. But I also noticed just going through B&H's website that company Hoya, which makes filters, they have a ton of infrared filters, and they all seem really highly reviewed and decently priced. So I'll link to one of those too.
We've got an email from Simon. He says, I'm new to Final Cut Pro 10 and I know both you and Nick use it for your projects. I'm in the project I'm working on. I have a clip that's running about 4 minutes. However, there are only small portions of the clip I think I will use. My question is in the browser panel, is there a way to have multiple in and out points on the same clip as I review it so I can add them to the timeline when I start my project?
So the quick answer is no. You can't have multiple in and out points on one clip because I think as soon as you create another in and out point, it gets rid of the first one. But there is a workaround, and I think you actually use it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, I do this all the time. So what I do, especially when I have a lot of clips, when I'm doing a wedding or something and I'm trying to find all the best little super short 3-second clips, I run through the clip. I can do this all with my keyboard, JKL to move forward. I know to drop in and out points. When you have an in and out point you like, you hit F, which makes it a favorite. And then you can keep going, do a new in and out point, hit F to make it a favorite, and keep going. And then when you're ready to drop things into your timeline, you can just change the browser to favorites only, and then they all appear as individual clips that you can add to your timeline.
So they don't go into like their own little bin or like a keyword folder. It's just, you just change the view mode for the event viewer to favorites.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. And then they look like separate clips. And if you're in regular mode, you'll see, I think it's purple in Final Cut Pro, but like when you set an in and out point, it shows like a yellow bar over the portion of the clip in the browser. I think that turns purple or blue or something. I think it's purple for favorites.
Oh, cool.
So you can see how many clips favorites you have in a given clip.
I had no idea about that functionality. I was thinking what you probably used, similar, is you could set an in and out point and then do Command K for keyword.
Yep, that would work too.
At least with that, you could organize it. You could say, well, this is this kind of clip. It's when people are smiling, and you could categorize all the smiling shots or something. But your technique is even easier. It's a quicker,
easier, and it's
keystroke.
really fast. So that's what I could do.
Yeah.
I can go mark all my favorites without taking my hands off the keyboard. Up and down arrow will move you between clips in the browser. So I can go, and I can kind of do it in fast motion, and fast forward and find my in and out, because I'm just trying to get a rough idea of what parts I like. Hit F for favorite, keep going through the clip. As soon as I get to the end of the clip, I hit down arrow and I keep going. So let me make sure I'm not lying about F.
And you and I edit differently. Like, to Simon's question, I would never do this because it just doesn't, it's not the way that I edit. I don't do a lot of in and out in the event viewer and then bring them into the timeline later. I kind of dump everything in the timeline. So I might throw an entire shot, that entire 4-minute clip in the timeline, and I like to do my editing down there. I'll chop it up, and I can kind of leave things in the timeline and then maybe move them to the front, but I'll kind of leave my extras at the back. So that's kind of how I have my favorites. They're essentially just a string of clips sitting at the end of my timeline that I'll go reference later. And one of the reasons I do that is because
green, not purple. I don't know where I got purple from. Yeah.
I think the reason I do it that way is because a lot of times I'm working with slow motion or something, and I want to see the things in slow motion, or I want to see it with like an effect applied, and you can't do any effects or slow motion in the event viewer. It kind of has to be in the timeline to start doing that stuff. Or if I want to see how it fits with music, it's just a lot easier for me to do it all in the timeline.
One of the advantages of using the favorites method, and this used to happen to me a lot, is, I would edit a highlight video for a wedding, and, you give the first draft out, and the bride says, oh, I hate this one shot, or, I don't like the way I look in this shot, or something like that. So you delete that, and then you go, oh, I had a second shot, but I cut it out, and now I don't,
right.
Where is it? I got rid of that shot. So with all the favorites marked, it's pretty easy to go back and find those in the browser.
Oh, yeah. I have that same problem. For me, I just end up making a bunch of different versions of the project. Like, I'll throw all my good clips in a timeline, and then before I start doing the cut down, I'll just save that as a duplicate project as like before cut down. And then when I get to a rough cut, then I'll save that as the rough cut timeline, and then I'll keep editing. And then when a client wants me to make some changes, I'll make a duplicate of the project, make all the changes, and then inevitably when they say, actually, could you go back to the previous version and just make these 2 changes? Then I'll just go back to the old. So I end up with like 12 projects for one video assignment.
Different strokes for different folks.
Right. So we got a tweet from Shannon, who is starting a job as a videographer for a dentist. And she's wondering if we have any...
Just pointing it out there.
She's wondering if we have any tips for holding a camera extremely close to a subject for an extended time while still being able to move around for other shots. Any rigs she should use? First of all,
sounds like a job for a monopod, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
I was just thinking like a tripod and 2 cameras if you got them. I don't know exactly the nature of the shots she's shooting, although I have shot in a dentist office before. Have you ever done dentist work?
I can't say I have, no.
I think I've done it multiple times. I had a client a while back that was in like an orthodontist, like a surgeon, and I don't know the terminology, but he did like dental surgery. And so depending on the nature of what you're filming, I can imagine a situation where you need to be rolling all the time, like you said, for an extended period of time. So it does seem to me like you'd probably just want to set up one camera on a tripod, always looking right into the mouth or whatever the subject is you're trying to capture. And then, maybe run around with a second camera handheld to get some additional shots if you can get 2 cameras going. Otherwise, I'd probably just leave one on the tripod for a while, and then when it's time, pop it off and get some handheld shots.
You almost wonder if something like a GorillaPod, you know how they have all those lights and stuff that the dentists use that are on like those arms above?
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if like it would be if you could like manually or attach a camera to that. That's always in like a good angle
right
to look in. And then
I'm guessing that stuff's not made to hold much more weight than it. I imagine they're already kind of calibrated. Yeah, but maybe if it could, you could use a Pedco Ultra clamp for that.
Ding, Pedco Ultra clamp.
I have found in my limited dental filmography experience, that those rooms can be really small. So I'm imagining before you go out and get like a big shoulder rig and stuff, you may need to be as lightweight as possible. Maybe you do need to use a Gorilla Pod on the counter instead of a full-size tripod. And I did find that I relied a lot on my 35 to 100 lens, because I think you probably will want to like zoom in to the subject, and maybe you don't want the camera inches away. Maybe you do want it a few feet away. And I think just knowing dentists as clients, they probably want very clean, professional shots. So handheld might not do you very much good, because it may just not match the tone that they're going for.
We've got a tweet from Micah. I have an editing job where I need to edit 9 videos and get the cut to a second person to color grade. I'm in Lightworks Pro, and she uses Premiere Creative Cloud. Any suggestions on working between 2 editors using different software?
So, Micah, I actually got a great tip from Alex Ferrari, who we interviewed a few episodes back on the show. I think after we stopped rolling, I don't think it was in the show. Maybe it was, but I think it was afterward. I asked him
Griffin
about...
keeps all the best stuff for himself.
Yeah. No, I was curious about this exact thing. Like, if I'm going to send a Final Cut Pro project out to a colorist in DaVinci Resolve, I know a lot of people don't use Final Cut Pro 10 for collaboration. So how would I do that? How would this person be able to deal with it? And his suggestion was, well, just send the finished video, the full exported video in high quality. That's what they'll actually do the grading on. But then also export the XML from Final Cut. And I imagine you could probably do the same in Lightworks. And if you export the XML, even if the colorist doesn't have all the source footage, they can open up your project, and even though everything will be missing, they can at least layer your high quality video on top, and now they have all your edit timings. So they could at least go quickly from shot to the beginning of each shot to the next shot to the next shot to the next shot, and just chop up your high quality video. His only caveat was your piece can't really have dissolves in it. They need to be hard cuts, so that the person can actually make those cuts and then apply color. So maybe you need to remove some transitions before you export or something like that. Or maybe you have to be a little bit creative on what elements you export and give to them. Or maybe you give them the entire source footage in XML, and maybe they can rebuild the whole thing in Premiere.
And what if you were just sending them the final video, what would you send it in? What format? Like in a ProRes?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, I probably would just send it in ProRes 422. I suppose maybe there's an argument to send it in an even higher quality version like ProRes 4444, but you know, my source footage is shot in H.264. Some of it's 10-bit, some of it's 8-bit. I would think that ProRes 422 would capture all of that quality. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, even a high bitrate H.264 file could presumably be okay. Maybe it's 100 or 200 megabits. I mean, I would just give them the best thing you can. Right. To ensure that you're not losing quality. We got an email from Joshua, who is shooting with a GH4 camera and capturing sound on a boom pole. And right now he's using a low-end Tascam and connecting it to the boom pole. I guess maybe it's just the Tascam on the end of the boom pole, no microphone, or he's using the built-in microphone. He later syncs it in post, and so he's wondering if he were to buy a new Tascam, one with a 4-track recording, would that improve the sound of his audio, or does the quality just come from the mic and the Tascam acts as the recorder?
Yeah, I'm not totally clear on if he's using a separate mic with his current lower-end Tascam or not. I would say if the Tascam is acting just as the recorder, the mic is significantly more important in terms of audio quality, and that's where you want to spend your time upgrading. Now, if you are literally just using a Tascam on a boom pole with the built-in microphone, those mics are not probably the quite right type of microphone for that application, and I would suggest maybe adjusting that mic. But if you've already got a decent mic that you like, changing out the recorder on the back end is probably not going to change the audio quality.
Yeah, I mean, people talk about preamps, the quality of the preamps that are in these recorders, and surely that has some impact, but not nearly as much. Like you said, the most important thing is the microphone. I mean, as long as you're not pairing it with like a $5 recorder, I would think that you're probably going to get some decent preamps going.
All right, we've got a YouTube comment from Timothy Holt with a little medical advice for you, Griffin. Hey, Griffin, I've been a retoucher for 10 plus years and have dealt with this on and off. I think we're talking about your potential carpal tunnel. I have a wrist bracelet that I use when I find myself with a heavy workload. It generally alleviates the strain. Honestly, the only true solution, and it's one that sucks to hear, is to take a break. Seriously, take a break from all electronic devices. It's difficult, but can be done. When you return to editing after that break, you must maintain proper posture. Otherwise, you'll be back to square one. It sounds so simple, but it's incredibly hard to do. Look into the Alexander technique. I just heard about it, and it sounds promising. Cheers, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, Tim is echoing what a lot of people said based on last week's bonus episode about carpal tunnel. A lot of people were just saying, yeah, you just need to take a break. And it was good that the last week I spent it in Illinois doing things other than editing. So I do feel a lot better already. But you're right. Yeah, I think when I'm feeling this, I just need to find a way to stop editing.
I still feel like you should talk to a medical professional.
Yeah, a lot of people had that advice too. Why am I afraid of doctors?
Go to the doctor.
But yeah, thank you, Tim.
That's it. We did it.
We did it.
Thank you, Griffin.
I'm a pilot now with less pain in my wrists.
Woohoo!
Things are looking up.
My dog is very unhappy, Griffin. I don't know if you can hear that. My apologies, everyone, for the.
Your dog is freaking out.
The dog's barking. The children were screaming. It's one of those episodes. Everybody gets a little taste of Nick Bodemer's life today.
Oh, I forgot to mention that it sounded like when I posted on my Instagram story last week that I had gotten this license, and I got a lot of feedback from people saying they did the same thing, or they even did it recently. So it sounds like a lot of the people who follow me on Instagram, listen to this podcast, have already done the Part 107 certification. So congrats, everyone.
That's good.
See, it's not hard. Lots of people do it.
That's right. That's right. Alrighty, sir. Are we talking next week? Yes?
Yes. Don't know
more
about
tremendous
what yet.
Excitement.
But
we'll
yeah,
find out. We'll see
week.
what MoviePass does in the next week, and maybe we'll have more to talk about there. Maybe they'll be out of business. Don't know. Tough to say.
Oh, I saw another movie with my AMC pass.
Oh, yeah? What'd you see?
I saw 8th Grade, which I think maybe I talked about.
Hey, that looks really good.
It was very good, yeah.
The trailer looks excellent. I just saw Infinity War.
Oh, for some reason I would have assumed you're the kind of person who would see that sooner. I guess.
Yeah.
It's not like you have a ton of free time.
It's hard to get to the theater.
Yeah.
So I hadn't seen it before. I thought it was excellent. No spoilers, but didn't expect the cliffhanger. Apparently it's a two-parter. Did not know that going in.
Did not know that.
Did not know that. That's new. Yeah, so looking forward to seeing how they get out of this one, you know.
It's probably like the end of every Marvel movie.
No, come on. This one is a much
It's more
bigger
than a
cliffhanger
two-parter.
than
Every Marvel movie is part of a 15-episode arc.
And how the hell did they get all of those characters into one movie? It's actually pretty impressive that they were able to juggle that, don't you think?
I don't know. That's probably what's kept me away from that movie. I just kind of assumed that there's no way they could do that well. Like, I don't want to go watch a movie.
Have you not seen it yet?
25 people. Yeah, no.
You haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it.
So you don't. That's why I was like, why are you being so coy? You actually have no idea what I'm talking about. That's why.
Although
right, well,
I know the
that.
Spoilers, so I kind of know what's going on in this movie.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that some other time since you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
All right, my friend.
All right.
We'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
For the first time, I feel like I can hear the music playing, you know, that you play as we wrap up. It's kind of funny.
You know it's not playing. It's in your head.
It will be, though.
Yeah.
It will be.